We'll call meeting to order for the planning commission meeting, or whatever day it is, April 18th. No, this is May 16th. So first order of business is approve the minutes from April 18th, 2022. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yes.
And is
I'll make a motion to approve them as written.
Second.
motion and a second, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and signed, motion carries. To the scheduled public hearings, so just welcome all of you. This is a big crowd for us. So you know, they changed the format of how we do this as far as I have to read a million things, and so I apologize. It's just your luck that we hear lots of stuff. So, okay, I now open the public hearing on case file number CUP 2-22, request to authorize a conditional use permit for commercial mixed use property located, no, this is the wrong one. This is the right one? Okay. For commercial mixed use property located in light industrial ML zone district. Today is May 16th, 2022. It is 7 p.m. My name is Brian Gould. I am the Planning Commission chairperson. Planning Commission will make a final decision on this application based on the complete record, including the testimony received at tonight's public hearing. These proceedings will be recorded. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with North Bend City Code and State Law, ORS 197.797. Specifically, the staff will first present the staff report and recommendation. The applicant will then have an opportunity to present the proposal and address any issues raised by the staff report and recommendation. For public testimony, I will first ask we hear from people who would like to speak in favor of the proposal. I'll then ask to hear from people who have neutral comments or questions about the proposal, neither for or against. Finally, those in opposition to the proposal will have an opportunity to present testimony. City staff may then present additional material and recommendations based on public testimony. The applicant will be given an opportunity to have the last word. After each presentation, I will ask for questions from the commission. For anyone wishing to speak, we are asking you to sign up, use the sign-up sheet that has been provided. When called upon to speak, you must be recognized by me, the chairperson, and you must state your name and address for the public record. We ask that each speaker limit themselves to no more than 3 minutes. Please remember that all presentations will be timed. You will be informed when your allotted time has expired. All speakers exceeding that time limit will be asked by the chair to immediately conclude his or her remarks. If you do not wish to finish your presentation, be sure to provide a copy of your statement to the staff. Written testimony may also be offered and will be considered and made part of the record. In order to minimize repetitive testimony, organizations are encouraged to have only one person to speak for the group, with other members of the organization standing to show support. Each person may testify only once unless called back to the podium at the request of council member to respond to a question. Thank you for your cooperation. Conflicts of interest, ex parte contacts bias. The commission is required to disclose any conflicts of interest and ex parte contacts that they may have had with proposal or applicant. That is, whether we have any financial or other personal interest in the proposal, and whether we have spoken with anybody about the proposal outside the meeting. Also, commissioners may only participate if they do so without undue bias, either for or against the application. Do any commissioners wish to make any disclosures? All right. Here we go. State law requires me to tell you a number of things at the beginning of the hearing. First, the applicable substantive criteria that may apply to this application are contained in the written staff report and will be identified and discussed in the oral staff report, ORS 197.797, subsection 5A. Second, your testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards these criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code that you believe apply to this application, ORS 197.797.5, section B. Third, failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker or any other people an opportunity to respond may preclude appeal of the decision on the application based on that issue, ORS 197.797.5, subsection C. Finally, to the applicant, failure to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specifically to allow city to respond to the issue precludes any actions for damages in circuit court or S 197-796-3 sub B. Appeals from the planning commission are heard by city council, North Bend City Code 1829020. We'll now hear from staff who will go over the staff report. Chelsea.
My turn. Thank you, Chair. So you have a staff report in front of you. Goes into all the details. I'll try to hit the highlights. As you stated, the request is for commercial mixed use of land that is located in our light industrial zone. The subject property is 2025 and 2075 Sheridan Avenue, and it's actually the site where planning commission recommended approval of a rezone from heavy industrial to light industrial back in 2017 to allow just the commercial uses through the conditional use permit process. The applicant is Brett Clarno, and I believe Mr. Clarno is here. No, tonight. The owner is BGC Land and Livestock LLC. The purpose, it's kind of it's specific, and they want to have commercial mixed use, but general in what specific commercial uses they would like there. We know that they'd like to have retail storage units and potentially general retail or office, fitness club, home improvement, building supplies, tech stores. Those are the things, the businesses they're looking for. It's important to note that at the time, it's difficult to determine the full impacts of any of the proposed types of commercial uses without having a very specific floor plan, area breakdown, how much is each use going to occupy in the building, how many parking spaces will that require, what are their separate daily business operations, what does that look like? So approving this CUP, while it's technically required for the commercial use, it doesn't guarantee that every single commercial use that's proposed in the future will be approved. They're all going to need a use occupancy permit. They may or may not have to go through a traffic impact study, but those are things that can be done on the staff level in the future. So notice, part of the criteria is to post notice. It was posted on the city website and mailed to subscribers and to affected owners back on April 25th, which was more than 20 days prior to tonight's public hearing. We did not have any real public comment. I did get an email from an interested party, someone wishing to lease a portion of one of the buildings for a beauty school with retail services associated. That's a use that could be permitted down there, subject to meeting parking requirements and other licensing requirements. As far as staff or outside agencies go, the public works, both the public works and the building engineering departments reiterated the need that there may be a traffic impact study in the future, depending on the types of uses that are proposed. Our public works director is concerned about the site distance visibility at the Washington Sheridan Avenue intersection. And so his recommendation is for a left turn out only onto Washington, such that vehicles have to go around Harbor Avenue and come back out at the light at Virginia and Sheridan. He's also concerned with drainage in the off-street parking facility and potential concerns with sanitary sewer capacity. Again, all things that can be addressed on the staff level at time of use occupancy permit. He did have a recommendation related to screening of conditional uses and would like to see the garbage dumpsters on site be screened from view, given it's down in our waterfront district. The building department also provided some history on the permits up on the site and building code requirements, and emphasized that a parking lot permit would be needed for any changes to that parking lot. ODOT did not have any significant concerns, and we also heard from the Cookville Indian tribe who did not have any concerns and said they would defer to fluency on any other items, and we have not heard from So the criteria for conditional use is 4 parts to show compatibility with adjacent uses, consistency in location, size, and design with adjacent uses, to show that the traffic impact will not be significant compared to the adjacent uses, and that the proposal complies with all other applicable development standards. So related to compatibility, and I'll preface this with an existing structure, existing commercial structures that have been there and have had office space as a use in the past. But there are also, I'll reiterate, commercial uses are allowed conditionally in the zone. It is adjacent state highway, which is an arterial street system, can accommodate larger volumes of traffic. So could handle the commercial use traffic very likely, depending on what the traffic generated is. It is adjacent a mix of industrial and commercial uses that are similar in type and scale, such as furniture store, warehouse, a apparel store, multi-tenant office building, a metal service center. And I've not received any comments to date that suggest that commercial use would not be compatible. And so planning commission can find that it does meet the compatibility criteria. Regarding consistency, each of those buildings are approximately 10,000 square feet high. It's similar in size to those other adjacent uses that I mentioned. And it is again next to that arterial street that handles large volumes of traffic. So we can find that the proposal does comply and meet that consistency criteria. Regarding traffic impact, the proposal does have the potential to result in a significant impact because some of those uses, commercial uses, can be expected to generate more than 500 daily trips, which is our city's trigger for traffic impact study. And there's going to be a need for a new off-street parking facility with shared access points. So again, the traffic impact study may be required at time of use occupancy, and if it is, appropriate mitigation measures will be required to be implemented. City access permits are going to be required for any use on site. The parking facility should have continuous pathways provided, and parking requirements are going to be calculated at time of use occupancy permit. In the parking lot, any changes to that, we will need a parking lot permit application with plans to verify the compliance with standards in our chapter related to off-street parking standards. So planning commission can find that the proposal can comply with that traffic impact criteria subject to the recommended conditions of approval of the staff report and proposed final order. Related to other applicable development standards, the proposal is subject to some limitations on uses in a light industrial zone. It is going, it can't be a cause for nuisance or health hazard. Any use that's there, it's going to need to use occupancy permits for every use that occupies a building there. If any signs are proposed, which are not proposed now, but in the future, those are going to need to meet the sign standards in North Bend City Code. And it is in a location of an extra large to XXL size tsunami inundation zone. So any kind of new development will be subject to that chapter. So again, the proposal can comply with the criteria for meeting all other applicable development standards subject to the recommended conditions of approval. And there are 10. So planning commission, our staff finds that planning commission can approve the case subject to those listed conditions of approval. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
If I'm understanding it right, he does not have to do a traffic study unless he increases the amount of parking spaces required there. Is that correct?
Well, it's unless a use generates more than 500 daily trips, or the city engineer thinks there's cause for concern. So it's really dependent on the use and how much traffic. A fast food restaurant generates more traffic than a retail store, which generates more traffic than a furniture store.
Okay. Okay, and then the other concern I had is he doesn't have to do anything with the storm sewer unless he increases the parking lot. Is that correct?
That's likely correct, yeah, unless there's a change to the parking lot.
Because there's no problem with it now, other than historically, all the manholes overflow anyway, you know? So, but
Right.
you're not gonna make him do a big study unless he increases the size of it, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah, and I think it's the sanitary sewer that is more depending on what uses go in, that is probably a concern.
Okay.
John,
It seemed pretty straightforward, so I have no questions.
Joe?
Chelsea, I think you did a very good job laying it out.
Kate, do you have any questions?
No.
All right. So the applicant's not here, so is there anyone else who wants just to speak in favor of this application?
Now, I didn't sign in because I wasn't planning on.
Are you in favor?
Yes.
Yeah, come on up and state your name and where your address, please.
My name is Steve Schneiderman and I reside in Coos Bay, 2340 Seaway Lane. And I'm a proposed tenant of the property. And as in, I think in the paperwork, I'm not occupying any of the, not planning on occupying any of the building, but a portion of the parking lot for U-Haul rentals. And I see no adverse impact to the traffic flow. I mean, U-Haul, a small independent U-Haul like me and like the corporate store, 5, 6, maybe 7 visits a day. So, and that's a good day. And I'd welcome any questions that any of the commissioners have about the U-Haul portion of it.
You know,
So as I understand it, the U-Haul has not yet been accepted.
Correct.
It's still in the process of being approved.
By this commission, I believe. Yes.
all right. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Is there anybody in opposition? All right, neutral, I guess not. And we haven't received any written comments.
Not in this case, no.
So there's no need for, does anyone have any further comments or questions before we close the public hearing, or any questions for Chelsea? All right, so we'll close the public hearing and move into, I now close the public hearing and the record at 7:17 PM. Now's the time for commission deliberation. Do I have to read the notes? Okay, good. Let's have 3. So does anyone have any comments on this one?
Seems to meet all the criteria.
Yep.
Yeah,
Seems pretty straightforward.
You all want to make a motion?
yeah. I make a motion to approve the conditional use permit 2-22 with the 10 conditions of approval that are listed on the paperwork.
Just point of order, Chelsea, do I need to read this as presented by Chelsea during her staff report? Do I need to read that paragraph?
It's helpful. for
Okay.
specific.
All right, sorry. So I have to read this. As presented, this is all new. So as presented by Chelsea during staff report, the planning commission can approve this case based on the application and findings and conclusions presented by in the proposed planning commission final order case CUP 2-22. Sorry, Wayne, please. If you want to repeat what you said.
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's it.
So Wayne made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Planning Commission approves application for case number CUP 2-22 based on the information presented by the applicant and the responses and findings in the staff report and proposed final order, subject to the following conditions set forth, enumerated as numbers 1 through 10. I need to read that. Authorization of this permit shall be void after 2 years
Yeah,
from the date of the decision, except when the decision is appealed, unless the authorized use or activity has been implemented or a building permit has been issued and substantial construction has taken place. The planning commission may authorize 2-year extension, provided the request for extension is submitted along with appropriate fee to the planning department prior to the expiration date of the original permit. Oh boy. All right, so we'll move on to, I now open the public hearing on case file SUB 1-22, BAR 1-22, request for preliminary plat approval for phase 2 of Mariner Heights subdivision. Today is May 16th, 2022. It is 7:19 p.m. My name is Brian Gould. I'm the Planning Commission chairperson. The Planning Commission will make a final decision on this application based on the complete record, including the testimony received at tonight's public hearing. Proceedings will be recorded. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with North Bend City Code and Oregon State Law, ORS 197.797. Specifically, the staff will first present the staff report and a recommendation. The applicant will then have an opportunity to present the proposal and address any issues raised by staff report and recommendation. Public testimony, I will first ask to hear from people who would like to speak in favor of the proposal. I will then ask to hear from people who have a neutral comments or questions for the proposal, either for or against. Finally, those in opposition to the proposal will have an opportunity to present testimony. City staff may then present additional materials and recommendations based on public testimony. The applicant will be given an opportunity to have the last word. After each presentation, I will ask for questions from the commission. Anyone wishing to speak, we are asking you to use a sign-up sheet that has been provided in the hallway. When called upon to speak, you must be recognized by me, the chairperson, and must state your name and address for the public record. We ask that each speaker limit themselves to no more than 3 minutes. Please remember that all presentations will be timed. You will be informed when your allotted time is expired. All speakers exceeding the time limit will be asked by the chair to immediately conclude his or her remarks. If you do not wish to finish your presentation, be sure to provide a copy of your statement to the staff. Written testimony may also be offered and will be considered and made a part of the record. In order to minimize repetitive testimony, organizations are encouraged to have only one person speak for the group, with other members of the organization standing to show their support. Each person may testify only once unless called back to the podium at the request of the council member to respond to the question. Thank you for your cooperation. Conflicts of interest. The commission is required to disclose any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts that we have had with the proposal or applicant. That is, whether we have any financial or other personal interest in the proposal, or whether we have spoken with anybody about the proposal outside of this hearing. Also, commissioners may only participate if they do so without undue bias, either for or against the application. Do any commissioners wish to make any disclosures? Oh boy.
I need to step out.
Okay.
I do have financial dealings with them, and I don't want any chance of someone appealing something.
Thank you.
You'll probably need to step out also for the same reason.
All right. Thank you both. Okay. So then I will just say that in the letters that were written, one of them is from my dentist, but I don't have any, we've never talked about it. So, and I don't have any financial interest in this. Anyone else? All right. Thank you both. Okay. State law requires me to tell you a number of things at the beginning of this hearing. First, the applicable substantive criteria that may apply to this application are contained in written staff report and will be identified and discussed in the oral staff report, ORS 197.797-5A. Second, your testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards these criteria and other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code that you believe apply to this criteria, ORS 197.797-5B. Third, failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker or any other people an opportunity to respond may preclude an appeal of a decision on this application based on that issue. 197 ORS 797-5C. Finally, to the applicant, failure to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of the approval with sufficient specificity to allow city to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court Court ORS 197-796-3B. Appeals from the planning commission are heard by city council, North Bend City Code 18-29020. We'll now hear from staff who will go over the staff report. Chelsea?
Yes. So, as you said, it's preliminary plat, request for approval for what we're calling phase 2 of the Mariner Heights subdivision. Planning commission does have a letter from an attorney, Mike Reeder, for you that was submitted, and that could speak to the phase 1 Mariner Heights subdivision CCNR, or phase 8, and as that might relate to this case. Part of the preliminary plat approval includes a request for variance to deviate from minimum standards for 1, from the minimum center line radii on a curve, and 2, for full sidewalk improvements. The applicant is Haley Sheldon on behalf of the owner of Dana Investments LLC. They are here with us tonight. The purpose of this subdivision is to divide approximately 3 acres of land in our residential R7 zone district into 10 lots for single family dwelling use. Access will be via Garfield Street at Starboard Lane. This street will be a private road meeting the minimum standards for street width. A switchback with a 45-foot center line radii will be implemented to provide access in an area of steep slopes. This has been okayed by our fire department. Sidewalk will be improved along the west side of the street around the cul-de-sac and ending on the east side before it would traverse back up the switchback. This would provide sufficient pedestrian access and meet the intent of that sidewalk in that location. The water system will meet water board standards. The sewer system is going to be private, and the stormwater system, it's my understanding, I think at this point anyways, will be dedicated to the city. And an agreement will be put into place establishing ownership and maintenance of the private street and sewer facilities. The criteria is in our subdivision ordinance, also needing to show compliance with our zoning ordinance, our chapter on transportation facilities and improvements, and chapter 92 of Oregon revised statute. In this case, notice was sent to affected owners within 100 feet of the subject property and also affected agencies. We did get comments in opposition to the proposal from property owners at 2208 Garfield Street, 2165 Garfield Street, and from the Mariner Heights HOA Board of Directors. Those written comments are in the staff report, and I will briefly summarize them. These individuals are concerned that the developer in the past has not been considerate of their neighborhood's HOAs, and they just want to ensure that the subdivision is developed in a safe manner and that it will be maintained. They're concerned with potential adverse effects on Upper Garfield Street, being they think there's a potential for on-street parking to overflow into their neighborhood where on-street parking overnight is not permitted. There's concerns that traffic will increase and traffic speeds will increase. And they've also voiced that the variances are not warranted when based upon financial hardship. So as it relates to the HOAs, and enforcement, the city does not enforce HOAs, and we are hopeful that things will improve moving forward through this process. Unfortunately, the HOA will continue to be responsible for the monitoring and enforcement of their rules as it might relate to people parking on the street, the Upper Garfield Street, or people speeding through the street. But that would be a civil concern, please. But regarding the potential adverse effects on neighborhood, there are 10 single-family dwellings proposed, and those are expected to generate less than 100 vehicle trips a day, where North Bend City Code doesn't require any further traffic impact analysis until after 500 daily trips are generated, or when the engineer finds there to be a safety concern. And at this time, the city engineer has no such concerns. The speeds on the street and the on-street parking restrictions will be reviewed further after final street design. That comes in the next phase of development. Regarding development and maintenance, the city engineer must approve the final design plans, and required permits must be in place prior to start of construction. So there is that assurance that the city will be looking at all of that before construction takes place. The developer is required to comply with all applicable codes related to the subdivision development and building, including best management practices. The city can and will enforce its own code if violation is punishable by a fine. And again, the ownership and maintenance agreements for the private facilities will be put in place prior to final plat. Regarding the variance requests, planning commission's approval, it's not recommended that it's based on the financial hardship, but based on topographic constraints that are posed at this site that make street development and access into the buildable area difficult, which is not a problem present for adjacent properties. And in which case, city code does provide for the minimum variance needed to be authorized. And comments from other city departments and outside agencies. Mostly, there was no major concerns, mostly just technical requirements that need to be addressed during the construction phase. And so, as put forth in the staff report and recommended order for approval, you can find that it does comply with the requirements for preliminary plat, or can, subject to the listed conditions 1 through 9. So if there are any specific questions in this case, happy to respond.
So the fire department's okay with this?
Yes,
And then is it normal to only have a sidewalk on one side of the street? And is that something we want to start doing?
it is not the code requires on both sides of the street. Is it normal to have it on one side of North Bend? Yes. For new development, that would be the intent. But in this case, the variance request would be based on the fact that it's a dead end cul-de-sac and it's wrapping up around that steep slope hillside, which makes it difficult to get as much in as possible without compromising the hillside.
And is that a sidewalk on one side throughout or just around the corner?
It would come from Upper Garfield, come down the west side of the extension, and then wrap around the proposed cul-de-sac and back up. So it would front all of the proposed 10 lots, and then it would stop. And one of the recommended conditions is to create access points that would connect, not a crosswalk, but like ramps that would allow pedestrians to get off the sidewalk where it ends and go back to the other side so they can make it back up the hill on a sidewalk.
So does that be like an ADA ramp or a raise in the road or something?
That would, for our engineering department to flush out with the developer.
And I read in one of the comments that this would be a single lane road
And that's incorrect. It will be two-way.
to it, I believe at 10 feet each,
It can be each.
10 feet.
Oh,
For-
10 feet, sorry.
for each
Yes,
lane.
yeah, each lane is a minimum of 10 feet travel.
And they'll not be allowed to park on the hill, correct?
I don't know the specifics of that yet. I would imagine it doesn't work out, but that's at the time of the final street design. That's when our engineers will look at it and determine where it does and doesn't make sense.
Anyone else?
Will it be on-street parking available with this? On this?
There should be, the street is a width that allows for one side on street parking.
Great.
For some locations, yes.
On the hill or down at the bottom?
Down below,
And the fire truck can turn around there.
they say they can, yes. That cul-de-sac is minimum, it meets the requirement.
Kate, anything?
No.
Ron, anything else? Any other questions for Chelsea? All right, we will now hear from the primary applicant for the representative who has 15 minutes to present his or her case.
I'm Haley. This is Flavio and his wife Sedina. And if you have questions for them, I'm sure they'll be happy to ask. I don't have a presentation. I just want to address just a couple things really quick. So I think the first is that this property's been long vacant in North Bend. Flavio here is a local contractor, and so he's uniquely positioned to develop this property. He's come up with a pretty cool design. The street is a 28-foot street. So it's two 10-foot travel lanes and 8 feet of on-street parking. It probably will have no parking signs at that curve due to safety. And this is something that we talked about with Ralph, but it'll still be 28 feet wide, right? It has a sidewalk that comes down from the top, wraps all the way around the cul-de-sac, and it fronts each of the 10 lots. So it tapers off after you go all the way around the cul-de-sac and up a ways. It's before you get into the turn on the hill. The request for the variance is all based on that hairpin turn. So the ability to develop that steep property, the design requires this switchback. And so there were a lot of maybe just questions in the comments that we got. And I don't think that some of their information was accurate. So that street's going to be really wide. It also has a 100-foot diameter cul-de-sac at the bottom. That's fire code. So the fire department will be able to turn around in the bottom and then go back up the hill. The only other thing that I want to mention is we did get a lot of comments on this application. Flavio hired a land use attorney, Mike Reeder, to go over the HOA CC&Rs, and you saw his letter today. We would have loved to provide that sooner, but he's a busy guy, so it took us a while to get the letter, and we got it right in at the very last moment, but he's looked at those CC&Rs. We also spoke with the declarant of the subdivision about their future plans for those properties. And that bottom area of the subdivision was intended by S&K Development, which is Dan Kyleberg and Joel Sweet, to be divided in the future, to be developed further in the future. And that's why they left them out of the restrictive covenants of the CC&Rs, but allowed them to be voting members of the subdivision, right? And I want to mention that the comments that we received were sort of not in my backyard related. We didn't find a lot of substantial criterion-based comments. We didn't find any concerns from engineering that we weren't able to address, and we're looking forward to the step-by-step inspection process to make sure that the whole subdivision is built to engineering standards. And so I'll answer any questions you have.
What is the grade of this hill that we're talking about with the switchbacks at?
Max 18%.
18%.
What else? Anyone? Ron?
Well, I guess there are several concerns from the Public Works Department, city engineering coordinator, and building department.
And we met with Ralph a couple days after those comments were drafted with the engineer and Flavio, and went through each one of them. And I think that we've more or less.
That's accurate. We did meet after the staff report and the comments and talked through all of those concerns, and applicant has, agreed to address everything, and I think it's all satisfactory.
So for example, the guardrail, we're putting in the guardrail. Gosh, I'm
You're not
blanking
building a
on the
road
other ones.
loose sand.
What was that?
You're not building a road on loose sand.
No, that was another concern. So the compaction of the road is something that actually Public Works sort of not formally oversaw, but worked with Flavio on. And I think he could speak to that a little bit more if you'd like to. It'll also be compacted. The lots themselves will have to pass geotechnical evaluation by building codes. And he's done compaction reports on the road already and turned those into Public Works. So Ralph has those.
Well, a question that you have, there will be on that curve, there'll be two 10-foot travel lanes.
And
You said
8
it-
additional feet.
And additional 8 feet. Does that include the sidewalk
No, plus 5 feet of sidewalk.
plus 5 feet sidewalk?
It's a standard city street for about 2/3 of the street. It's just that last part where you go up the hill where you lose the one side sidewalk.
As it goes into Garfield.
Correct.
Why does it lose it?
Because because we would, building the additional sidewalk on that street, so there's 2 sidewalks all the way up. The difficulty of doing that relative to the grade and the drop that's on the eastern side of the road, it's complicated. So it's not that we can't do it, it's that we're arguing at this time that the function of it for the city of North Bend, we're saying, do you really need 2 sidewalks for this dead end road? Could we please, on this section of it, not have 2 sidewalks so it's easier for us to build?
Is the numbered 1000 on Starboard Lane, is that 2-story house?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know who the
Is
end
that the existing 2-story house? That's that lot 1000? Okay. So they have a fence there, don't they? Or, yeah.
And what would the transition look like from going from sidewalk to no sidewalk? What would that transition look like?
I would guess it's just so you're gonna get to the very end of the last lot, go through the whole lot, so they've got sidewalk and driveway, and then it would just grade down. And the street would just keep, this travel lanes are the same size, right? So the travel lane's just gonna keep going up and the sidewalk ramps down. You can maybe have a ramp on the side so somebody in a chair can come easily into the street. And then if there are any other criteria that engineering would like us to meet, like for example, putting some sort of indication that you can cross here. Mind you, it is 10 homes, right? So
Sure.
the amount of congestion that we could really generate down there is be pretty hard.
Okay.
I'll just say, I personally didn't visit the site, but the house, this 2-story house is, my wife and I stole those paint colors for our house. So that's the only reason I know what that house looks like. And that's where we got our inspiration for our home.
So then your wife has been there.
Well, I visited, this is 5 years ago, was the last time I was there. So, I mean, that's where we found our paint colors. So, but I have not visited it to see this project.
The ground below, it's a unique, we were talking about this the other day, it's a unique site because it's so developable on the bottom. People haven't really been able to figure out how to get down there. And so when you're standing on the top without some background in development, it's pretty hard to imagine it working. Like, it seems really scary. But once so I'll just admit that seems scary. But once the road goes in, I think a lot of folks in the neighborhood will be able to envision more of what the plan is.
And this will be a private street,
Correct.
but the upper Garfield is a public street.
Correct.
And the storm drain will be managed by the city or owned by the city?
The storm drain will also be private. And so there's a storm drain that comes off of Garfield right now and dumps into this area. And so what we're going to do is build an open trench, and then we're going to direct that water to on its natural drainage pathway. But the city, for completely understandable reasons, is reluctant to take on additional stormwater infrastructure, particularly when the road is private. And so the 10 homeowners within the subdivision will have maintenance agreements for the care of the road and the care of the stormwater system, and also their individual sanitary sewer laterals, which will go up the street into a private manhole before it reaches a public manhole in Garfield. So all of that infrastructure will need some sort of maintenance agreement, and we will have all those maintenance and operations plans run through Ralph. The city of North Bend will see all of those agreements. Those agreements will be attached to the deeds to each of these properties and recorded in perpetuity.
So the sanitary sewer will run uphill.
Correct. So they'll have individual pumps on the bottom. I think the plan is still to do E1 grinder pumps.
And where is this drain, like, is it gonna be a French drain? Is that gonna be in somebody's house lot? Whereas, I mean, all the water, it's gonna come down the hill. Where's it gonna go?
So the water from the road will go into will go into the trench that runs along the western side of the property and will disperse into that rock-filled trench as it goes down. The individual properties will have their own dry wells on the property.
Is the trench the dotted line?
Probably,
It says yes.
The storm drain easement.
yes, correct.
So then the
Oh, it's that.
properties
Oh,
won't drain off of the property, but they'll drain into a driveway.
Mhm.
And is there wetlands? So I spent 13 years doing property lakeside. So there's lots of problems with water flow. and everything else.
anyone else? Okay. All right, so Flavio, did you wish to speak as well, or?
I think they did a wonderful job.
All right.
Easy peasy.
Is there anyone that's scheduled to speak against it or online, or? You're speaking against it, Wayne?
Yeah, I better. I'm gonna speak for
Oh, for, oh, okay. Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
So please.
Wayne Shrunk, 1975 Cleveland Street, North Bend. In regards to the tentative Garfield plat, I'm in favor of it because of the fact that we're running out of property in North Bend. And anytime you can take a challenging piece of property and make it work, I'm for it. I think we need all the space we can get in North Bend. As far as the situation that I saw on the letters, they had two major concerns. One was the parking up on the street up above. And as far as homeowners association goes, they can limit the people up there for not parking on the road, but the road and the parking, that's public land. And so it falls under the criteria of the city ordinances, and they have to comply to that, just like any other property owner would have to do on the public right of way. And in regards to the variance of the sidewalk, historically, we've ran into situations in the city where the topography has not allowed us to follow the criteria set forth in the zoning. And that's what this ordinance thing is about. You can have a variance due to topography. I don't believe it's a financial situation. I think it's due to the topography. It would be not only difficult, but it would also, I went out and looked at the job site there before coming over here. It would be so steep, it could present a danger situation of people walking up and down it. And I feel that the fact that they're going to be bringing it up part way on the east side and then crossing over is a much safer situation. And they're dealing with, in the paperwork I saw, that they're dealing with the ice situation for cars and all of that with guardrails or whatever they're going to have to do. That'll be taken care of by the engineering department and all. But as far as, other places, there's been jobs that we have allowed variances due to topography. And so I would speak in favor of allowing that variance on it. And so I think that's basically it. That make my 3 minutes?
Nope.
Good.
Wayne, did you sign in outside?
No.
Okay, make sure you do that.
$10 fine. Is anybody else in favor? No one in opposition? Anyone neutral? All right, so we read the, do you want me to read the written comments, who they were from? You did that.
I've read the addresses. You can read the name.
Okay, so we have received the following written comments. These are part of the staff report and have been reviewed by planning commission in our packets and emails. Dr. Michael and Alyssa Martins, Dr. Charles James and Laura James, Mariner Heights Homeowners Association Board of Directors. And then a response from
Michael Reader.
Michael Reader, attorney. Do you wish to make any rebuttals, Kelly? Right. Any questions of the applicant before we move on? Any questions of, I guess we'll close the public hearing, and I now close the public hearing and the record at 7:49 PM. Now is the time for commission deliberation. So this is the first one short of LNG where I was kind of hostile towards it. And until Chelsea made her presentation tonight and showed that the fire department was in favor of it. But that was my big concern, was access and fire. But since the city's happy, I'm happy. So this is in
I
5
would say
years.
This was looked at several years ago, if I remember correctly. I think Mark Meeker did it back when he was here, so this has been approved for quite some time, if I remember correctly. So, by the fire department.
Oh, yeah. Anyone? Ron?
So, John, did you say that the fire department approved this several years ago?
Yeah, back when Chief Meeker was the fire chief.
But it was approved at that time.
It's a humdinger of a hill. I mean, it's gonna be,
We said, you're crazy, but good luck. Yeah,
it's gonna be fun for go-karts
yeah.
if it's approved. Okay,
I had concerns over the public works comments and the engineering comments. Apparently those have been addressed. And apparently this can't move forward until those things have been taken care of. True story?
Correct. I mean, through the construction phase, applicant and our engineering public works department will be working closely.
And there are concerns from the neighbors, from construction equipment left in the street and mud and things. I would expect that that would not be a problem in the future.
Yeah, actually, it was never a problem. We like to keep our.
So-
rates very competitive.
we can't ask him questions.
No, I wasn't. I was just
Okay.
Oh,
addressing it toward him.
there won't be.
Kate, anything?
No, I don't have anything.
All right. So take a motion if anyone has a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for case file number SUB 1-22. That's right. Variance 1-22, based on the information presented by the applicant and the responses and findings in the staff report and proposed final order, subject to the following conditions of approval set forth in the proposed final order for case file number SUB 1-22 / variance 1-22, enumerated as numbers 1 through 9.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. As, I forgot to read this again, sorry. As presented by the Chelsea during our staff report, planning commission can approve the case based on application of findings and conclusions presented. Yeah, so we have motion for approval. Okay. Sorry about that. So the motion carries. The planning commission approves application for case number SUB 1-22 and grants the requested variance under case number variance 1-22 based on the information presented by the applicant and responses and findings in the staff report and proposed final order, subject to the following conditions 1 through 9. Final plat must be submitted to the city within 12 months after approval of the preliminary plat, unless development permits have been issued and substantial construction has taken place. in which case the final plat shall be submitted within 24 months after approval of the preliminary plat. Planning Commission may extend the time for submission for the final plat to request from applicant. Applicant must submit the request for an extension prior to the expiration of the approval period. Thank you for bearing with me on that. We'll get that right next time. So that's it. Motion carries. So the next one is, please welcome members back. Planning Commission is a motion for approval. We haven't approved it yet, though. The Planning Commission approves the final partition plat under case partition 2-11. Is that, am I right?
So
That's one,
what we're gonna consider.
but we haven't approved it yet.
We approved the preliminary.
Oh, okay.
We're on the
Oh.
final plat approval.
Okay, based on the information presented by the applicant and the responses and findings in the staff report and proposed final order.
Yeah, and so this is a case at 547 Road where it's a residential Arson property and the owner is partitioning it into two separate lots. It was approved back in preliminary plat phase, was approved back in December. They went through, they did all the requirements for the platting, satisfied the conditions of approval. Our county surveyor has relayed they're happy with the plat, final plat. The water service is required for this partition, and the water board has certified that the applicant has paid the fee for water service, and that will be installed, it's scheduled to be installed this June. And so while the service is not there today, that equates to a form of tax bond for purposes of approving final plat. The city works department, public works department has certified that parcel 2 is serviced with sewer system. And we have a building permit number 627-22-000018-SDR, which has been issued for development of a primary dwelling on parcel 2, which if you recall, had only a garage or a shop, and that was an issue, but now they're building a single family home. So all of those concerns have been addressed. And so this one should be just really quite simple. Staff finds you can approve the final plat based on their application and the staff report and the recommended findings. And so authorizing that would just be as planning commissioner chair's signature on the final plat, and then they would be responsible to go and obtain the remaining signatures. Recorded and copy that.
We don't have to vote on anything?
We do need a motion to approve or not approve.
Oh.
Yeah,
We need to discuss it at all?
if you want.
Does anyone have any discussion on this?
If I remember correctly, the deck was encroaching.
Correct, the deck was encroaching and the applicant actually cut it back. It used to be the full face of the building, you know, about halfway, and so it fits within the setbacks.
I was gone during this hearing, so
Oh, were you?
yeah, I was on vacation.
That's why you remember.
Yeah, spacing. So anyone else? Take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we, planning commission approves the final partition plat under case number partition 2-21 based on the information presented by the applicant and the responses and findings of the staff report and proposed final order.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do we have any other business? Public comment? Seeing no public. Commission comment. I just want to thank Kate for all of her time for the last couple of years. It's been a pleasure working with you and knowing you, and I hope you and your family are successful in New York.
Second.
Aye.
With that, we're adjourned.
That's it.